All right, it's 3 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Good to see such a great turnout today. I'll begin with roll call, please.
Mr. Williams. Here. Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Here. Thank you. Mr. Williams, would you lead us in prayer? You okay? You need a minute? Yeah.
Before you get sick, you can't get the breath that you had at first come up them steps. Let us take a minute to look back over the year. And now let us close our eyes. Gracious God, our Father, it's once again that we gathered at this historic building on side of the road in Saluda, Virginia. Father, we thank you for being who you are. Father, for giving us a way out, for giving us a choice to do good or to do bad. Father, now we assemble here in a time that be with us. Father, that the decisions that we have to make for this county, Father, that it would not be a shame in any way of you. Father, strengthen our hearts that we may grow close. Father, that we communicate well, where we can have transparency in a way, Father, that everybody can understand. So, Father, be with us as we begin to start this meeting. Father, we are humble. You have brought us through a storm. Father, and just strengthen us, just strengthen us to let us know your land is special land here in Middlesex County, that everything you made is good. You did not make a mistake, Father. We come to say thank you this afternoon, Father, and everybody in here, Father. And I'm glad that you allow us to speak to you, Father. In Jesus' name we all do pray. Amen.
Thank you. Anne Marie, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda tonight is deliberation and nomination of a new board member. And for those who may not be familiar with this process, we had the resignation of a board member from the Hartfield District. And according to the rules that we work under, it becomes the responsibility of the current Board of Supervisors to appoint a replacement until a special election can be held. We have already received approval from the judge to hold that special election in November of next year, November 7th, I think the date is. The next general election, the first Tuesday in November. Until that time, it's up to this board to appoint a replacement representative of Hartfield, and we had 40 resignation of the prior supervisor in order to that selection. We were delighted and honored to have a really surprising large number of very well qualified applicants, male and female, great experience, great knowledge about Middlesex County. We had an initial screening and chose the majority of those candidates to interview in person, male and female. We had fabulous interviews with those candidates, and as a result of those interviews, we met in closed session, as this is essentially a personnel matter, and it was the will of the board to have one candidate who seemed to be uniquely qualified with the experience and knowledge that they could bring to the county. And so I'm going to open the floor for comments and deliberations among my fellow board members, and will then ask for a resolution for an appointment. So I'm opening the floor for comment.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to thank everyone in that district for, applying and coming out. And I also would like to say that, it was a tough decision. But just like you said, one applicant, was just a little bit above the rest. And like I said, you covered most of everything, and I'm not going to belay this on any longer. You can talk to other applicants when you talk to. Okay.
All right, thank you. Yep. Don, any comments?
I would agree with Wayne. The selection process of the applicants was very close in our discussions about all of them. They all seemed to be qualified, and it was nice to see that we had that sort of turnout for the number of people that were interested in filling that seat.
Thank you. Richard, comments?
That we learned a lot. I learned a lot, and also some of the ones that put in forward that happened to have an interview, they were a blessing for the county, and I hope that they'll be willing to be used in some other way. I like my first impressions of a person. And the candidate we selected, to me, all of them were good. But it's just something about my first impression when I meet you. I mean, I'm sorry, just something, I call it the little man. And I'm well pleased to have, to choose one, but I'm sorry we couldn't use them all. But like I said, if they want to work and do things for Mills County, I'm pretty sure that we'll be blessed, and we will see that if they would volunteer, some would help us. I'm telling you, I know it'll be a blessing, because I also had a feeling, but somebody else too. But how to say, Bill got to me first. So I'm just leaving it like it is. Thank you once again.
Is there a resolution? A motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Bill Harris for the Hartfield District Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we have unique proceeding in our Board of Supervisors meeting. We do have the clerk of court to provide a swearing in of Mr. William Harris into the Board of Supervisors, and we can proceed with that.
I, William August Harris, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I will faithfully and impartially discharge all of the duties incumbent upon me as a member of the Board of Supervisors for Middlesex County, for a term of office commencing on this date and until the qualified voters fill the vacancy.
For the term of office
Commencing on this date.
commencing on this date until the qualified voters fill the vacancy by election, and the person so elected has qualified and takes the oath of office according to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Welcome. So now in roll call, we'll have to distinguish our Harrises.
Whatever you need on mine, we don't like this.
And by the way, we are not related, as far as I know, correct?
Very good. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion by Don Harris, second by Mr. Jesse. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. I'll now open the floor for public comment. Do you have
I
anyone
do.
who submitted requests to speak?
I do. The first public speaker is John McDaniel out of Pine Top.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is John McDaniel. I'm a resident in Pine Tops District in Chesapeake Watch subdivision. I am a new guy here. I've only been full-time for about 4 years, property owner for better than 10. I'd like to appeal to the Board of Supervisors to seriously make a plan for a boat ramp facility in the Pine Tops District, Deltaville, probably on Broad Creek or in some suitable area that the amount of property necessary can be obtained. Some is already owned in that district by the county, and that's my spiel. Any questions?
This isn't the format of this isn't a back and forth between us, Mr. McDaniel. We may address your comment sometime later in the meeting, but thank you
Okay.
very much for your comment.
I'd like the request to go on record. Thank you.
Our next public speaker is Eric Johnson of Saluda.
I'm Eric Johnson. I live at Sibley's Landing Road, Saluda District. And I came up here today because got something disturbing me, and I happened to read in the Sentinel the week of Thanksgiving that we had been awarded a $750,000 grant for purchase of a piece of property down in Deltaville. And digging in that a little bit, I haven't seen anything about it anywhere in the paper. I haven't heard any comments about folks, being asked what their opinion of this is and this kind of thing. And the little bit I have found out is that we are contemplating buying a large tract of land down on the river for public beach access. And I understand that we got some donated money that was allotted for that. And it just looked like to me that the county citizens would have some type of input if you're going to be spending that kind of money, especially if you're going to be spending more money than you're getting. And it just looked like we would have a chance to have some input into it rather than going deep in debt and spending money that we don't have to make a lot of improvements that, we could use a nice access. But to go way above our means to do it just seems like financial irresponsibility to go there and to do that. And I'm just hoping that you all haven't done that, or that you're not going to do it, or you do a whole lot more studying before you go on and spend that kind of money on top of everything else that we've spent. And I just want to make sure that you understand that I think the county citizens ought to have some input on it, rather than just accepting the board's opinion of it. Not, you know, when you're talking about that kind of money, it's just something that's not good, I don't think. So if you all have any questions, or if you can enlighten me on what you're doing, I'd love to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else?
I have no other public speakers.
Would anybody else like to address the board? Bob?
Bob Jackson, Urbana. I would just like to ditto what Mr. Johnson just spoke on. And also, I would just like to say that some of the things that goes on in this county, there should be a referendum for, especially things like the sewer and also like the water. I mean, it's like the citizens of this county have no input at all that what this county is doing. And I am sick and tired. First of all, for the water, by the citizens. You can get grants, all the grants you want, but that money still has to be paid for. You don't get all the money to cover the whole complete project. But, you know, like I'm saying before, that those grants has got to be paid for, and it's paid for by the citizen. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Jackson, sorry. Sorry, Bob. Yes, sir. Is our timer working? I hadn't seen that was.
I'm John Widener from Deltaville, and I wanted to comment on the process that we just saw concluded to select this interim supervisor. There was an exchange that occurred a few weeks ago. There was an interested citizen. I was copied on the exchange, and the chair said that at a subsequent public meeting, not in closed session, the board will discuss the qualifications and make a selection of the appointee. Now, I heard the word qualifications mentioned, but it wasn't specific as to how you made your decision. Which qualifications were most important? Was it time in Middlesex County? Was, what specific parts of the resume were we looking at? So I don't have a lot of prepared remarks here because I wasn't sure what I was going to be responding to. But I did hear a prayer at the beginning of this meeting for transparency, and I would ask that the board be transparent and also listen to the public, the explanation of the process, and hearing from the public as to how you make a decision like this would be very, very helpful as you move forward to make sure that your board is even more effective than it is right now. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the name.
W-E-I-D-N-E-R. John from Delta.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman.
Would anybody else like to address the board? I'll close the public comment period. And moving right along, we have treasurer's report on pages 42 through 47 of your packet. We have the Commissioner of Revenue report only, again, page 48. Agency and staff reports, VDOT report only, pages 49 through 51. Next is Dr. Seitz with School Matters Budget Supplement Request.
Good afternoon, and congratulations, Mr. Harris, and welcome to the board. So I do have a budget supplement request and a couple of other things to either request or update you on. So we'll start with the supplement request first, which in your packet is located on page 52. Most of this is the remainder of the actuals from federal awards. I brought a couple last month, so all of the titles, E-rate, IDEA, and Perkins are the actuals that we've received from the state or federal once that's been updated. I will just give you a quick overview of what looks like the larger items. The All-in Virginia initiative, which is $316,000. That's a grant from the governor that came to all school divisions to address learning loss, chronic absenteeism, and to help accelerate the implementation of the Virginia Literacy Act. So that's very specific on what those monies go towards. Stronger Connections Grant is a grant that we applied for and received from the state. I say state, actually it comes from the federal government. It's funneled through the state and allocated that way. We will be using that to outfit all of our interior doors, and we think we can do it at all 3 schools with cyber locks. And so it's not every individual teacher doesn't have their own key to their room, but just like we enter into the outside of the buildings with cyber, we call them cyber keys, so that way doors could stay locked. Only teachers that have access to that room, those rooms, and then identified administration would have access. So it's just another layer of safety is what that grant is for. The school security equipment grant, we apply every year. The maximum we applied actually for $243,000. It's a competitive grant. We were awarded, as you see, $40,000 for us. That'll go towards the high school as part of the application that we had for the high school to cover additional 2A radios and cameras. So I'm happy to answer any other questions about these items. Yes, sir.
Your All-in Virginia initiative, how did you say you was planning on using that?
So it is specific to address learning loss in students due to the pandemic, chronic absenteeism, and then the Virginia Literacy Act, which has to be implemented and go into full effect next year.
So have we done anything?
Right now, the bulk of it right now is going towards our after-school tutoring program that we just started last week, where we have, I think, 22 teachers staying after about 130 students. And so we are providing the teachers with additional stipend. There's additional resources and additional programs that were bought for that. And then, of course, the drivers that have been, because we have about 90 of those students riding the buses in the afternoons on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So right now, that's what the bulk of it's going to. It is good for this year and then the 2 years after that.
And the connection, I kind of like missed the Strong Connection Grant, is that?
Yes, that one is a federal grant that comes through the state. We applied through the state, but that is the cyber locks for the interior doors of the schools that I was describing.
And that's the only way it can be used?
Oh, no, it could be used for every school division could choose how they wanted to use it for safety. A lot of things we have in place, plus we had already applied for the school security equipment grant. We felt like that was another layer on the inside of schools that would be good for safety.
But it's got to be used towards safety?
Well, that's what it did, yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct. The Stronger Connections Grant, it's considered hardening of schools, and hardening means making them less of a soft target for attacks and things like that.
And these grants are not a match? You don't have to let 10%?
No. Oh, no.
Flat out use it as you please?
The Stronger Connections Grant, there is not a match, and the All-in Virginia is not a match. School security equipment is a match. We apply for that every year.
Okay.
Hello, ladies. How are you? Glad that you're here today. I just have a follow-up question on the materials and supplies, Stronger Connections Grant, the 323-153. Dr. Sykes, you and I had spoke recently about a damaged panel.
Yes.
Is that something additional that's going to come up in discussion? Because I don't see anything else in.
No, I was going to bring that up after we finished this and had approval on this, then I was going to bring up the panel. Yes.
Okay.
I'm happy to talk about it now unless you wanted to finish this business and then.
Well, it may coincide with this business.
Okay.
Maybe you should speak to it.
Sure, I will, because the other Mr. Harris and I had a conversation recently, and I mentioned to him that I would be coming today. Our fire control panel at the elementary school bit the dust. And it was, so that building we entered into 22 years ago, and the parts could no longer be replaced, so we had to purchase a new fire panel for that. My request is that, if you remember last month when I came, that we had additional funds still remaining in our CIP because the MES roof project was under budget. And so at that time, we were $229,000 under budget. The fire panel replacement is $49,135, so I'm asking to use the additional funds that are still in the CIP for the fire panel replacement. That still leaves us $180,625.14 under what was approved in the CIP for FY24.
Dr. Sykes, I would assume that this materials and supplies connection grant, you put together a list of how that money is going to be spent. Is that correct?
That is correct. It has to go through Omega. Ms. Murray has to do that. And actually, when we first submitted the grant, the company that came out and gave us the quote on the 2 schools, they did it very quickly. We've since had them come back and analyze all 3 of the schools and all of the doors, and we think with the award that we were given, we're going to be able to outfit all 3 of our schools instead of just the middle and the high school. So every cent of that will be accounted for.
Okay, my question would be then, for this panel at whatever the number is, 40 plus, why would we not use that out of this particular grant?
The fire panel,
Yes.
all of the money for that grant will be consumed in the locks. You don't want us to do all the locks?
I get that. And I haven't seen what you've done or what you haven't done. And I don't know what doors that we're talking about that would encompass that particular plan. Just thinking outside the box, though, with the renovation committee talking about what this high school may or may not need, would there be locks being replaced that not necessarily would need to be replaced? Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think that's a good question. And
Thank
so
you.
the locks are for all classroom doors, any rooms that contain students, including media center, auditorium. The locks are, this is not an act, this
I
is a
get it.
spitball. The locks
get
are
it.
about $2,500 a lock. We talked about that before we made the application, because we were also talking about the fact that we were looking at a potential high school renovation in the near future. They can all be used on the same doors or even replacement doors. It's just the lock piece of it.
Okay.
So they could be reused. Whatever we do at the high school, they will be reused.
Okay. So back to my original question, is there a way for you guys to reassess where that money may or may not come from? Whether it comes from us appropriating the $40,000 for you, or that maybe in some slicing and dicing, the amount could be covered under the materials and supplies grant?
There's not enough money in the materials and supplies grant to cover all of the interior doors in the 3 schools and to add that.
The materials and supplies is the total grant. It's all of the pieces, parts for those doors.
And we actually went back through and did another reassessment at the middle and the high, because originally that's what we applied for. We went back through and made sure we were not putting a lock on any door that wasn't considered a classroom door, so that when the final quote came in for those 2 schools, and we recognized we still had some funds that we could use for the elementary, that's when we went back, and I think we cut out maybe 14 doors that weren't classroom doors, so that we could do all the classroom doors at the elementary school.
Okay, let me be a little more clear. So, the question is, would you reassess what you're doing and how you're doing it to provide the $40,000 for, which I understand is that has to be done.
Right.
So is there a way for you guys to rethink that a little bit or come back to us? Has that panel been replaced and has it been paid for?
The panel has been replaced because once a panel goes down, you're on 24-hour fire watch.
And how did you pay for that?
That's,
Out of what
I don't,
fund?
have we been in, I don't know that it's been paid for. We haven't been invoiced for it yet.
It hadn't been invoiced
That's
yet.
what we're requesting.
Right, it hasn't been invoiced yet. The company, because we are a school, did a rush, because typically I think it takes about 6 weeks to get things like that replaced. Because it,
Emergency procurement
Yeah.
situation.
we went through the emergency procurement process.
It's under emergency procurement. Yes, yes.
So when the panel meant that it would not identify and register any smoke, fire, anything in the school, which meant it would not enunciate anything. And so by that, we went under A, and our director of operations worked with David Lehman. We had to go on a 24-hour fire watch, meaning everything was monitored. That was a building, it was a certain pathway that was circulated every day at every hour while the students were still in session. It was right before Thanksgiving, and then, or right before a weekend. And then on the weekend, we could monitor it remotely with sensors and video and those things. So it has to be replaced.
I get it, and yes, it does need to be replaced. All I'm saying is, and some of the speakers made comment of how we're spending money and what we're spending money on. And in my opinion, if that is a way that can be found without us, and I understand that you're under budget. Thank you very much for that. But we are trying to set aside money for the potential renovation of the high school, and that would be a potential for that. Does that make sense?
I see what you're saying on saving money. I think in this case, when we're talking about a fire control panel that's gone bad in a school because it's exhausted its life, I would think that it's reasonable that, especially since right now we're looking at $229,000 under budget, that the Board of Supervisors would cover that. But I 100% understand what you're asking and why you're asking. I'm a taxpayer in this county also, and I don't want the board overspending, nor do I want the school board overspending on anything. I think this is a, fire, we've been able to save, I think, about $2 million in CIP that we've been able to use funds for the boilers and things like that have gone down. We've been fortunate with the ESSER funds that we've received that we could use those. Same thing with the overflow parking lot. I thought it was appropriate to come to the Board of Supervisors and request that we use those funds that are still there for this project.
Y'all have been very efficient on how you spend your money. I'm just making sure that we're all on the same page. Because whatever that number is for the renovation of the high school, prior to us starting that project, if we had adequate money in hand or the ability to pay for that, would move the project along quicker than a phased project based on what we actually want to do or not do.
Yes, understand that.
You understand
Yes,
where I'm coming
absolutely,
from
I
on
do.
that?
I sure do.
Okay.
Yes.
I got one question. Up front, you said that we didn't use, the school system didn't use all the money they applied for.
For the CIP that was appropriated for us?
Yeah, the CIP,
The
money
roofing
that-
project at the elementary school came in under budget. We went to a different company and got it under
and
budget.
that's okay. Then, if you bid on a project or you go to buy something and you get the money from somewhere because you put in for some money that you didn't know what it's going to cost anyway, it just was a guesstimation. Then you get a figure of $200,000. Then you say, well, let me not use this like I want to use it. My personal opinion, if you go out and buy something and that's what it costs, then that money shouldn't be regulated around somewhere else, because that's where we are losing at. And I could say we could lose in somewhere else. If we make our mind up to do something so aggressively, and I'm not even talking about y'all, I'm talking about the comment that Don made. When you say you're going to redo the school renovation, and I'm just using it for example because Don used it. it seems like that what are we gonna start doing? The best thing for the dollar to do, instead of make our mind up what we're gonna do before we really check all the way into it. So I'm not getting after you, but I believe that money spent, if you go out and spend money to buy something, I don't care what it is, that's what you spent, because these CIPs that we're doing, change work orders and stuff, and you talking about driving a taxpayer, whether we taxpayers or not, it's gonna drive us crazy, because we can't take advantage because we see something. We figure we can use it in another way, when we have another way to cover it. And that's how I see it. So when the CIP don't come up to the total price, it comes less than what it is, y'all just listen to me very clearly. That's what it costs. And when it costs that, it goes back into the general fund, and that's how I feel about it. And the whole thing just starts all over again. But I'm getting it.
Yeah, I understand. My plan was not to spend it, but when I was at the School Board Association and I got a text from the principal that there was a smell of smoke in the office and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And then through several conversations, we found out that the panel was fried and the parts couldn't be replaced. And so we were hit all of a sudden with a $49,000 panel replacement. Instead of being able to plan for that it's coming near end of life, this is something that we need to build into a CIP, that's how that one hit us, so.
I got it, safety.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about the panel, for instance. I didn't know none of what you're talking about, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't call that no type of communication on Board of Supervisors. And if the school got a problem, don't you think the county will support you? Because that's what the Board of Supervisors, any type of emergency with the school system and the kids. I mean, it's no emergency if nobody know nothing about it. And all I'm saying is zero. And I'm watching and reading, I didn't see anything. In fact, I got to get it from the Sentinel before I even get the stuff. So I'm seeing things now that just getting strange, and I will be comment more about things like that. So I just want people to be straight up when they say stuff and communicate with everybody that know, because we can be driven by one or two people about anything. That don't mean the majority. Someone's got to make a stand, and I'm not talking about you. Sometimes you got to make a stand. I'm hearing some stuff now, and I'm not seeing the numbers that comes out to make sense to me. So it's okay. I'm gonna raise my voice. I haven't talked in 2 or 3 months, so that could be the problem. But I'm just saying, I'm gonna say it very clearly. I'll try to keep it simple so everybody can understand. If you go out to buy something, and it costs $10. If I send my kid out to buy something in the store, he said, Dad, this is what it costs, $49.95. If I give him more than that, he spends more than that, I gotta know. If he spends less than that, he said, Dad, I got it for $29. I want to bring me $20 back.
I don't blame you. I would too.
And that's how the difference between, and I say it very plainly, trust and honesty. Honestly, you bring me $20, hey, Papa got a deal on it. Okay, give my money back. And that's all I'm saying.
Right, so we don't get it in the beginning and then we hold on to it. It's appropriated to us, and then we, if it's something different that we need. And I think typically probably it's not the case that we're under budget in a CIP. If we look back in the past, well, my experience only goes back 2 years, so I don't know that I can't speak past that, but I think typically it's not a situation where we've got a CIP project that we come in that much under budget. But we had a quote on that roof, and then after we talked to some other people, they suggested some other companies that we look into, which is what we did. Had them come out, do another assessment, looked into that further, checked some more references, and that's where we went, and that's how come there was a difference there in the roofing project.
Does the school system have an asset management program?
So look at my finance person. An asset management program?
Justin, operations.
I mean, it wouldn't be uncommon if small systems, you don't have one. that you
Not
know
a,
of,
not
by
a
that
separate
name
person,
anyway.
no.
Not a
Okay,
separate,
all right.
No.
operations maybe.
Yep.
We can help.
Any other discussion? Questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve FY 2024-19 budget supplement.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Don Harris. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Harris, Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Do you have another?
Well, I was going to give an update on the parking lot, but I guess I need to know what to do with the fire panel.
The fire panel,
The fire panel.
it's a
That's the-
separate,
That's the four, so that was, yeah, that was not a part of the budget supplement request. That was a separate piece that came up after this, yes.
do you have a request or a recommendation for sourcing the funds?
So the request is to use the money that hasn't been used in the CIP that was appropriated for FY '24. So the fire panel is $49,000. There's, as I said, we are $229,000 under what was appropriated for the MES roofing project and the MED LED light project.
I have a quick question. We have the, coming in all the schools, you have now the security for them having to walk through metal detectors.
Yes.
I don't know what other securities that you have, but pertaining to this ask, while we lock, and I understand, but maybe educate me a little bit further, with the increase of wanting to have all the doors locked, is that because you don't want people that's already inside to be able to go in a teacher's classroom? Is it related to safety for students? Maybe speak on that a
It
second.
is, probably both of those things. The other thing, as we look back at all of our safety practices, is when you've got, a hard key in our school, so the newest school is the elementary school, and that's been open for 22 years, and you go back to the high school, and as you've got change in staff and movement of keys, we know that there are keys that are out there that get to classrooms, not the exterior doors, but get to classrooms that shouldn't be assigned in certain places, or we don't know maybe where they've been assigned and they've moved around. A system like this allows the director of operations to have it specific to a certain door, and then if at any time we need to cut that access off, we can cut it off. It also allows for all of the administrators to have a fob to get in. So right now, as we move around, our practice is to have our doors, and we're trying to coach our staff on this, is to keep doors closed, and our preference is to keep doors locked. But if let's say, for example, I was in the elementary school and there was a locked door and there was an incident, I wouldn't be able to get in because I don't have a master key to the elementary door, nor do I want to carry master keys to all of our buildings. It allows law enforcement, school resource officers, administration, anybody else that's identified in the schools, dean of students, counselors and such, to have access immediately to a classroom while we're keeping that door safe. Sometimes we have incidents with students that just becomes a little bit more than all of our students should be experiencing. And it really is just another layer of security that we're adding.
So can I assume, or would you like to give me a percentage of, for this request, are all the doors have locks on them? Or is there a percentage of some that do not have locks on them that you're trying to add locks to?
They all have locks on them with a traditional key.
Okay? So let me back up to the original question that I asked as it pertained to the ask and what you possibly could use out of the materials and supplies grant. With that, what you said, I would assume that there's still, instead of doing, and I don't know what the number is, but instead of doing 100 locks, you may have some wiggle room to only do 75 locks, and you may have the ability to, from a security standpoint, still get what you want. Am I right on that or not right on that?
Get what I want, including the fire panel? Is that what?
Yes.
So what we did, the original grant was only for 2 schools, middle and the high. They were the 2 older schools, so we felt like they were more at risk when it came to locking a door situation. And so when we had the company come out, the price that they gave us originally, doing a quick look, because the grant, it was a very fast turnaround on the grant when the Department of Ed called us for it. It would have consumed, those 2 schools pretty much consumed the entire grant that we were asked, the application. Yeah, the allocation. There was a certain amount that we could apply for, given, our demographics and such. And so those 2 schools consumed that. After we submitted it, they came back out to do a more specific look at the 2 schools. And when they gave us the actual quote for the job, it was under, which led us then to look at, can we also do this project at the elementary school? So we went back then and did another more thorough assessment to make sure that what we were requesting as door locks were only on classroom doors. Because I think at first they went through and they identified all interior doors in the 2 schools. So they went back then, and I think, like I said, I think we discovered maybe 14 more doors between those 2 schools that would not need these type of locks. So once we moved the funds that would have been for those, plus the money that was left over, because it came in under what they originally gave us as a quote, as an assessment of the elementary school, and I believe we're having the company come back and do that now, it looks like we can do all 3 schools. Instead of telling 2 schools, your 2 schools are a priority, and we want to do yours one day, but we don't have the funds to do yours now. It looks like we can do all 3 schools, but that will consume the entire amount that was allocated to us. I mean, it may be a matter of dollars or cents there. I don't have the final dollar amount yet, because I don't think that they've come back, or they were coming back maybe it was last week, to look at to see if we could do the elementary school also.
So right now we're looking at the fire panels for $49,000 that you want to appropriate from the funds that were left over from CIP. Basically,
Yes.
that's what we're looking at now.
Yes.
And all of it is safety, what you think about, it's safety. Just think about that. So I don't see what this keep going on, trying to micromanage. Y'all got to do this and do this to save that. But I'm just saying, this is a safety issue that came up from a fire, for fire. So there was money left over. I would like to appropriate the $49,000 for the fire panels, taking out the CIP from money that was left over from the previous appropriation.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Motion by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Bill Harris. Is there any more discussion?
The only discussion I have in regards to Mr. Jesse's comments was, I don't have a problem with what we're talking about. However, and as Mr. Williams said, and I just happened to be educated on this prior to the meeting this week, all we're talking about here, Mr. Jesse, is all of the parameters, which is why the questions were asked of why you're doing this or why you're doing that or why you're not doing this or can you use this, just so we're better educated before we make a decision on whatever we're talking about.
Yeah, I understand that, and we all understand that, but, going over and over again, I think the point has gotten across, and if anything that we need to know after that, we can talk to them about that. But I think your point that you're saying, I think it got across, and they know it. And just keep going over and over and, this and that, but this is a safety issue, as you know, and we all know. We want to have safe schools, all right? This is another discussion that can be talked about later, and sit down and talk about that. Because right now, you made your point. And that's what I'm trying to say. Your point was covered, very well covered.
I got one thing to say before we, just like it says $49,000. Now I may ask a dumb question. but we don't have no insurance or anything to cover something burning in the schools or something like that. Because it seems to be very easy to spend the taxpayers' money. So I'm just, when y'all talk these CIPs and all this junk, okay, that is just money put in the budget for somebody to think they know what they want. Okay? And if any of us been in business at all, it's a made-up scheme to overcharge of what you get and tell you a good deal. And I'm gonna go look at the tape. Oh, that's a good deal. We came under budget. But if we know we've been in business ourselves, we will know if we've done our homework. We don't go over. But this is what I'm saying. We didn't have any insurance or anything to cover that at all.
Not the panels, and they were out of warranty. Yeah, they couldn't.
We don't have insurance to cover school burned down or anything.
We have that, yes.
But we
not
don't
this
have
particular-
nothing that'll cover objects for $50,000. We didn't.
not
I'm
this-
just
not-
asking.
Not this item,
Not
no.
for that item.
No, it's just something we gotta pay out of pocket. Okay.
Is there any more discussion?
Yeah, I got one last thing. I hope I didn't drill you too bad. Thank you for coming. Thanks for answering all the questions that you answered. And we can talk about, as we do, about a variety of other things, including the potential renovation of the high school. And I didn't mean to put you on the block today. However, there's things that I like to know before I have to render a decision on whatever we're talking about. So thank you all very much. I apologize if you felt like I carved you up pretty well. I didn't intend to do that. But thanks for being here and answering what you did for
You're
us.
welcome. And we are always available to answer questions. We also recognize that the school finance side of things is different than the rest of the finance world. So we're always happy to answer those questions. So, I will take 1 minute to give you an update on that overflow parking lot that we've been talking about for a while.
Well, let us
You want to finish that?
Yes,
Yep.
ma'am.
Roll call vote on this motion.
Mr. Mr. Williams,
All right.
Mr. Bill Harris, Mr. Don Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Thank you.
All right, 1 minute, and then I'm going to go unless you have questions. The final piece has been submitted for DEQ to be able to issue that permit. As you know, we're behind schedule on getting the permit issued, and so bids should go out in January, taking us all the way through to a completion date of the end of July, which sets us up for school to open in August and sets us up to still continue to have all of the funding supported by ESSER funds. So that's the quick update. But I'll stay if you have more questions.
Thanks. You're learning pretty quick not to turn your back on me
Nope.
before, so I have to call you back. Appreciate that. And maybe I'm out of order here. I know we're supposed to talk about an easement later. The only question I have regarding that is, my understanding is Sun Tribe has to move a little bit of a line for the parking lot. Am I correct on that?
Yes, on the Middlesex Elementary side is where they have to make movement, not on the county side.
Okay.
Yes.
And they're absorbing the cost on that, is that correct?
Well, that's why we signed a new PPA, power purchase agreement. That's how all of this came to light, is that
Okay.
when there was a discovery that the Sun Tribe did not have an easement from the county for that northwest part of the sports complex that they have already bored under.
Okay.
I'll present that to you this evening, but I'm happy to answer
Oh,
questions.
you're going to be back?
I'm coming back this
I should
evening.
have saved that question for a little
She
later.
didn't get enough.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
be back. Actually, Sun Tribe is presenting that, but I'm also here this evening to answer questions.
Well, I'll be asking that question again then to them.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Thank you all. See you later.
Thank you. All right, next is Social Services Report, only pages 55 through 57 in your packet. And next is the County Engineer Update. We have Charlie Beam with us, pages 58 through 60 in the packet. Welcome back, Charlie.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, congratulations. Welcome, Mr. Harris.
Thanks, sir.
As you said in the packet, pages 58 through 60 you have the report, but I have a couple of updates. One is for the airport. We're working with Parish and Partners right now to prepare a scope of work to be considered by the state. And we met with the state, we've gone through a lot of their criteria, and the ALP that we previously submitted, I'm not going to say it wasn't accepted, but there needs to be changes made to that. And they referenced the ALP we submitted for the runway realignment. Unfortunately for them, that ALP was based on their recommendations. So again, based on our conversations with them, they've requested that we provide a new revised ALP. So in order for us to continue to develop the airport, I'm working with them to put together the scope of work to submit to the state for review and comment. Once they've provided their comments and we've incorporated it, I'll be coming back to the board probably in January, possibly February, with the scope of work and a proposed fee to conduct that work. Yep. That's it for the airport. The other update is on the sewer project for topping project. We've scheduled, I had mentioned before, the archaeological study that was required by the state and the fact that the county was pushing back based on the criteria that they were requiring. And we actually got comments back from them. So we'll be meeting with them later this week, hopefully, to review those comments, address their concerns, and hopefully still minimize the impact of the archaeological study to the topping project. So I'll have an update in January. And the last item I have is the county landfill, DEQ. As I mentioned in the last meeting, we submitted our plan for closure, which basically encompasses 4 quarters of testing, and then provided that the levels are still below detection, then we'll test once a year for the next 2 years, and then we'll get final closure. DEQ is coming out to conduct their annual inspection of the landfill. This doesn't have anything to do with the closure plan we've submitted, but they do talk, so that they could influence how that turns out. The state has accepted our testing plan, our closure plan, so we don't want anything to happen. So I'll be there. She's coming this Friday, so I'll be there this Friday to go with her, provide anything that she needs, and hopefully we'll get a clean bill of health from the DEQ for this year. So other than that, that's my update.
Charlie, I have a question. On your report for topping, you said a response from DHR is expected on 12/8 for the environmental assessment.
Oh, it's for the archaeological study.
Correct.
We actually got that today.
Have they responded?
Well,
Is expected by 12/8, so.
Oh, no. We didn't expect their comments until the 8th. We actually
Okay.
got them today.
Okay.
I've talked with the engineer, I've talked with their archaeological folks. We are going to respond to their letter, but we're also going to have a conference call meeting with them to make sure that we address all their concerns. So that'll free us up to move forward. And again, hopefully it'll minimize the impact of the project.
Do you expect, best guess, that they will come off the extensive part of the review of that project?
I believe they will. We had discussions with respect to that, and our interpretation of their comment about borings was initially they want us to dig every 50 feet.
Right.
And of course, we're not going to do that for 3 miles. We submitted a revised package that had a map book that showed the routing of the piping, and we would only test in those areas that we were outside the right-of-way for VDOT. And we identified 3 locations. One was the pumping station, the other was the gravity feed line from the campground to the pumping station, and then the 2 locations for temporary easements for construction laid out. And I didn't want to commit to anything. That's why I want to meet with them to find out what's their intent for that comment. And then if we have to, we would offer to dig or bore every 500 or every 1,000 feet. Because if we did every 50 feet, I mean, that's 3,000 borings, and you don't want to do that. And it's not in any areas that are identified as archaeological locations. So that's our argument. So we're hoping to have good news once we meet with them.
How many feet are you outside of VDOT's right of way where you're gonna have to do these studies?
Well, the pumping station is completely out of right of way.
So 40, 50 feet?
Oh, yes. It's set back off the road, and it's actually on county property along with the location of the gravity feed line from the camp. But we've agreed that's where we were going to do the borings. That was part of our presentation to them.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could elaborate briefly, we are confident in getting that approval for that modification from DHR because the ruling would be commensurate with what they gave HRSD when they were getting their approvals necessary for their forest mains that are largely located inside the right-of-way as well. And as many of the board knows, maybe some of the public here doesn't quite understand what we're talking about. What DHR would effectively be making us do is dig architectural test pits within land that's already been disturbed within the right-of-way.
That's
by
correct.
the road construction. So it's not likely we're going to find much but fill material unless we test outside the right-of-way. So that's what we're working on, and I would not, if we're going to be in negotiations with DHR, I would be surprised if we have that complete ruling from them until after the holidays. We'd be lucky if we have it by the January 3rd meeting of the board, because everybody at the state's off for December, generally speaking. That's a generalization, but it's not far from true.
That's true. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you, Charlie. All right, next we have Bay Aging Workforce Report Only is on page 61 of your packet.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, if you will indulge me, I will present some of the key points on this. The board has been asking for an update from Bay Aging for a little bit, and we received this from Mr. Alan Walker. We are going to be inviting him to give an update at the board strategic budget work session the first Friday in January to try to get a better sense of how the foundation and or Bay Aging's navigating these issues. But they are meeting with some success on getting some grant monies to help pay for the workforce housing project. It's our understanding, I'm glad they mentioned it, that they're in discussions with the River County's Community Foundation to leverage some money from our local grant sources, as well as they articulate in the last paragraph, they're going for a considerable amount of money from the National Housing Trust Fund, $700,000, and $2 million from the Home Innovations in Energy Efficiency Fund. That could go a long way to help fund the project and get that project stimulated a little bit. We hope to know more by fiscal year 25, which will begin July 1. But it's good news. No change, but we're headed in the right direction. So our staff's trying to support the Bay Aging folks in any way we can. Glad to get this report for the board and get this update in your hands before the holidays.
Okay, thank you. Next are citizen appointments, and I've got a couple of things that I'm going to take the lead on here. The first thing I want to take the lead on is I appreciate the comments very much of John Widener earlier, essentially expressing a desire to have more information about the qualifications that were impressive to this Board of Supervisors and certainly to me. So I'm going to just take a second and share with you some of the qualifications that really stood out to me, Bill. First, graduate of Middlesex High School, veteran of the Coast Guard, licensed electrician in the Commonwealth of Virginia, over 30 years in the water, wastewater industry for James City Service Authority, 20 years in its administration of wastewater superintendent, supervision, training, hiring, mentoring of staff, managed contracts under the Virginia Code of Procurement Procedures, instructor with James City Service Authority on multiple subjects, founding member of James City County Benefits Committee, worked with HRSD on numerous projects, experienced in working with multiple homeowner associations, and experience working with projects inside and outside the primary service area. What I personally consider to be a very unique and valuable resume for the projects that we're dealing with in the county, and certainly doing it for years. Thank you for volunteering. I regret that Mr. Widener has left the meeting, but maybe you can watch the recording. Anne, I may need your help on a couple of things here. Looking at the grid on page...
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think Mr. Kretz has got some things too to help you with on that as well, in addition to what Anne Marie might have to add about some of the appointees.
Okay.
I
I'll
don't
take
have
all the
any
help I
others.
can get. Dave?
I can explain the
Okay, great.
vacancies, I believe.
Yeah, are you chasing these people off, Dave?
I hope not. Is this still on? Can't tell. Where did I take that? Is it working now? Can you hear me? No, it's dead. I can yell.
Dave, why don't you come over here and speak into my mic, or
Okay.
grab Anne Marie.
Okay. That's fine. You have currently 2 vacancies in the planning department, directly in the planning department. 2 planning commission members have stepped aside. One of them was J.D. Davis this year, who's in the, I believe the Harmony Village district would be Mr. Williams' district. Just recently, Mr. Melvin Beverly has stepped down. These were both longtime members for our planning commission. So that would be in Mr. Jesse's district. So those vacancies, I don't know if we have any applicants for those particular vacancies. Those are two people that will be missed. They had a lot of institutional knowledge. Mr. Davis had been working on, was very familiar with drafting the comprehensive plan when he was here, and Mr. Beverly served on several of our subcommittees. So they're sorely missed in our with that. That being said, we only have 8 members and we need 6 for a quorum. So with members going in and out, it would be ideal if we could get those vacancies filled. Sometimes this is a conversation between the constituents, the board members and their constituents to try to fill these. We also have one other board vacancy for the Harmony Village District for the Wetlands Board. Many of you may know that Mr. Armstead passed away this year, and that's a little bit complicated because he actually was filling a position that doubled up in the Pine Top District. His home location went back and forth between districts, and that goes back to back when we had, actually Carlton Revere was a board member for Hartfield and actually acknowledged his service and was okay with him serving out of district. So he had been serving out of district for quite a few years. Again, it had gone back and forth. So we have one member down on our wetlands board. We do have an alternate that has stepped forward in our wetlands board that's currently serving. Mr. I believe his name is Mr. Brewington. I'm not sure whether that gentleman wants to step into the position. He would have to, he's in the Hartfield district. So he would be out of district. That would, the Saluda district would be Mr. Don Harris's district for the missing person. That was actually David Lawton. So you could possibly promote somebody out of district if that person wants to serve. We're not sure if he wants to serve full-time or just want to stay alternate. So again, these are important positions. We'd like to get them filled as soon as possible. So, anybody have any questions?
Dave, you said currently for the Planning Commission, you're lacking 2 members.
Correct.
And the total members you have on that is 7, correct?
We currently have 8. So the Planning Commission has 10 members and a board member. The board member makes the 11th member. So the board member, the appointed board member, is actually a member of the Planning Commission. So that would be Mr. Williams right now.
So you do have the ability to have a quorum?
We do. With a lot of times, having that many, we do have some nights where it's close. Some certain times that, members can't come. We have members that, one of our members runs a consulting company, and he ends up having a lot of applications become before the commission that he has to step aside on. So, being a small community, you have complications like that. And you also have, being a small community, you also have conflicts sometimes where people have to step aside. Anyway, that's kind of an inventory of what we're missing and what we need to get filled.
Does the county offer any incentives to them to be on these boards?
The compensation is very low, I would say. It's an honor to serve.
Yes, I agree. I didn't know if they,
Yeah, they're compensated. We may want to, what has it been, 10 years since we've looked at that, probably? It might not.
It's a de minimis compensation.
Yeah, it's barely enough to cover cost of driving.
some of the people that serve in the county, I think they don't have to pay personal property tax maybe on one vehicle or something like that.
No, that's for fire. That's for,
Right, yeah.
for fire.
I just wondered if there was something in there just to say thank you.
That's something we could look into. I'm not sure that statutorily we can do that, but we could look into that. The other plug I wanted to make was for the Board of Zoning Appeals, please. I'm looking at you, Mr. Williams. We need a Harmony Village representative, and not having one, if we continue to not have one, we'll have to go to the judge and ask for one. So we need one. As you know, that's a very important part of the zoning process and has been actively involved in some continuing complex matters. But Mr. Bill Harris, we can look into that if that would be a board's desire. I don't know off the top of my head if we're allowed to do that, but we can look into it. It could be maybe an incentive that might encourage more.
Maybe worthy of a discussion.
There are a few that we do actually have applications for. Is that correct? I believe we have one for the Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Community Service Board. We have Dr. Pirak is not eligible for reappointment. I don't know if Anne Marie or Shanae can speak on that.
I have a couple of notes on that, if you'd like. So Dr. Pirak's service will end at 12/31, and Linda Hodges, Executive Director of the Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Community Services Board, was in touch with Hartfield resident Betsy Littleberg, I believe it's pronounced, retired psychiatric nurse practitioner who expressed interest in serving as a community service board member from Middlesex County. Her credentials looked strong to me, and I would endorse her appointment. And she submitted an application, is that correct?
Yes, there is an
She did.
application showing on page 63. And please, I did put this on Facebook. I've advertised these openings on Facebook, and so far it's not produced anything. So I'm glad Linda Hodges was able to get this one for you.
One of the things that staff has found successful over the years is Dave engages with the community on a variety of planning or zoning matters. He finds out who in the community have an interest on planning and zoning matters. And staff has encouraged people to put in for these positions in the past. Dave, I just ask you to kind of think around it and see if you can help the board out on finding some people in those districts that may be interested.
So I'll entertain a motion to appoint Ms. Lilberg.
So moved. I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Jesse. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris. Mr. Don Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Jesse.
Yes.
Mr. Williams. Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes. Thank you. The other appointment request that I have is the Bay Consortium Workforce Development Board is essentially by default, membership consists of a board member. I've been serving on that committee as a board member. They meet every month or two. Typically, it's a little bit of a trip to another county to attend. And with the changes that have been made in the Economic Development Authority, which includes a committee specifically addressing workforce development, and others working on workforce housing as perhaps a supplement to workforce development, the educational opportunities that are involved in bringing workforce along, the hosting of job fairs. All of these services are coordinated among multiple counties by this board, and it's typical that the Board of Supervisors member, who is a formal member of the board, appoints two substitutes to be able to attend these. So I approached the Economic Development Authority and asked that they provide candidates in order to attend these meetings and to coordinate between the efforts of the EDA and the Workforce Development Board. And so the two candidates that are listed in your packet include the EDA Chair, John Anzavino, and Vice Chair, Selene Roden. And I would entertain, and they must be recommended to be served by the Board of Supervisors. And so I ask that that recommendation be made this evening.
For both or for just one?
For both. They would both be able to substitute for each other, as well as for whoever board member becomes the official member.
And does that eliminate the vacancy for that position? For that, it would? So moved.
Motion by Mr. Harris, is there a second?
No, I did not get applications from either of them.
This is not a county position. This is my substitute over the past 2 years that I've been there without a substitute to be able to attend meetings. Yeah,
Second.
thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Don Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes, that carries. And by the way, their applications for the Economic Development Authority are a matter of public record that's already in the county records. All All right, next is Anne Marie, budget supplement request 2024-20.
Do you want me to take this start? I'll kick off.
Okay,
Okay.
you go ahead and kick us off, and I'll bring us home.
Yes, sir. The 2024 budget that you adopted back in early 2023 included $2 million for the county sewer, for design of the county sewer project. And you've been hearing about this from Timmons all year long at the board meetings. Well, part of the request in order to obtain grants and future funding is that this $2 million is supposed to be set up in a special revenue fund or an enterprise fund. I have established, remember we did this for the airport. I have now established a enterprise fund for the sewer, and that's starting off with this transfer from the general fund, $2 million that was budgeted, so we're not changing the budget, and we're allocating it to the 4 areas, Topping, Hartfield, Saluda, and Deltaville. So again, this isn't changing your budget, but it is putting it in a separate fund for tracking purposes. And that is all I have. That was, I think we talked about this on several other occasions. I just request approval.
So there's no additional monies moving. This is just transferring existing monies in the approved fiscal year 2024 budget to another fund, meaning an enterprise fund specifically for the sewer project. It's a request of the Virginia Resources Authority that we do so in order for us to leverage revenue bond pledges to help secure the Clean Water Revolving Loan Funds that we've already gotten through DEQ. We've been working on establishment of the fund, and in years to come, as we review and work on the budget, you'll be able to see the revenues and every expense related to the sewer fund separate from the county's general fund. In a sense, it tracks that business enterprise separately from the general fund. And you'll very transparently be able to see the money spent, money coming and going, and transfers into and out of. And I'm available for any questions.
You made a comment, I may have it wrong, but hopefully I'm close. Roughly $750,000, $800,000 a line item in the budget every year.
There is, yes, sir.
Is this where you're going to take that and start putting that into this fund now?
No, sir. The $2 million that we're transferring is currently in the capital improvements fund. We'll be transferring it into a separate fund outside of the general fund.
I understand that. But this 800,000 or 750, I don't remember the exact figure.
It's $1 million this year.
Would that now start going into that fund, or are you just going to keep it as a line item?
Not necessarily. What we probably do is either leave it as a line item for capital reserve, because the primary purpose of that line item is to offset potential future debt service, or transfer it or show it as a transfer to the sewer enterprise fund in future budgets.
Because I was under the impression it was for the sewer.
It is. There's 2 primary purposes for that line item. One is to offset future debt service costs that would be shown and borne on the enterprise fund, and when not in use, go to the county general fund balance. And we'll be discussing a lot more of that in the next couple of months with the budget process.
So what are we looking here for? A motion to establish the enterprise fund?
Yes, sir, and transfer the monies to fund it.
Of the current amount, the $2 million, right?
That's correct.
And we'll have to have the same conversation when we need to transfer more money to that fund.
If we do need to transfer more money, yes, sir.
Correct. So moved on the motion.
I have one more. Who is able to encumber the funds from that?
I'm sorry?
Who is able to encumber the funds from that?
Encumber the
We
fund?
only
In other words,
have-
who's able to secure the funds and use it? Do we have to approve it for anything to come out of that $2 million?
Yes, sir. It's still, it's a Board of Supervisors fund. It's not a separate organization that governs that fund. It's just, you got your county general fund, you've got your county airport enterprise fund, and then you got your county sewer enterprise fund. They're all come to the board for approval and transfers and appropriation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Harris Mr. Don has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Jessup, second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, administrator updates.
I have just a couple quick matters. You have a copy of the written report in your packet. Last month, we gave to the board for their review and consideration a draft budget development calendar that sets our dates for all the key meetings and sets tentative dates. In recent years, it's been our practice to go ahead and try to chart all these meetings and get them on our books as soon as possible so we can plan for them. I was asking, or would ask the board to either approve that budget calendar or consider changes and let us know. And I've just been told there is one change already. The county already voted last January to hold our January board meeting Wednesday, January 3rd, as opposed to January 2nd. And we will make that change on there.
Would it make sense to just lock in whatever dates occur between now and the next board meeting when there will be different board composition and then approve the calendar at that time?
I mean, you can, we can have this at the organizational meeting in January, if you care to. We would like to let some of these entities know if it's the board's intent to continue the practice of the budget strategic work session the first Friday in January, so they can begin preparing for that work session.
We should be able to address that here. What's the will of the board on continuing that practice?
Right now, you have 2 meetings set up in the first week of January.
Yes, sir. And I guess I mentioned it last month, but I need to kind of review that a little bit. This is essentially the same budget calendar as we had last year,
Right.
with the exception of the Friday, the January 19th budget work session. And that allows staff enough time to get the draft draft expenditure projections built and aligns better with the school board.
So this is, maybe I can lay this out. This is perhaps new to you, Bill. Part of the budget process early on is to ask those organizations requesting county funds to give an update on their activities, any desires for changes in their scope of activities, any requests for funding. There are numerous organizations that come to us requesting funding, and sometimes they request changes, sometimes not. But it's really the only interaction that most of these organizations have with the Board of Supervisors, and it's really their opportunity to be considered in the whole budget process. So I found it to be very useful and important to have their participation in this. And I also will say that there are not enough days between January 1 and the conclusion of the budget meeting to get all the meetings done. They do get crammed in. There's just a lot to go over, a lot of moving parts, and we don't have control over what the state does, as you're well aware, and that influences some of the decisions and the timing that we have to follow as well.
That's correct, and this budget calendar pushes the revenue discussions back further, as far as we really can. For those of us who attended the VACO conference in November, we heard from Jim Regenwald, who we usually hear from. He does a great budget discussion, and to be polite, we think the General Assembly activities from this past year are probably going to become more commonplace in the future. So it's perhaps unlikely that we'll have definitive word from the General Assembly again on what a final budget looks like until into June, or maybe later, as we did this year. So as we discussed considerably last budget process, it's staff's intention to only prepare a budget that basically gives the board the picture of what we know the state is doing. Not any conjecture, not any what we hear, only the minimum of what we need to do from the state. And there's some other discussions too regarding bonuses for maybe lower paid employees that we're going to try to build into the budget. Well, those types of things will be discussed at the budget work session on January 5th. And the agency and staff and department heads work session that you're referring to, Mr. Chairman, is still on the budget calendar for February the 2nd, which is the first Friday of the month in February, which is where it's always been.
What was the change you gave earlier about one of the meeting dates? Was it January 3rd?
January 19th, sir. It's this meeting right here.
That was added?
It was changed from later in the month. We figure we can get that done earlier, get the budget notebooks to the board earlier.
Okay.
And then be able to move it along that much quicker. That's effectively the only change from last year's budget adoption.
No, it's moved to the 19th. We normally did. Matt, could you send everybody or email everybody this calendar?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll be happy. It was in last month's board packet.
I know.
If you adopt it, we will have Shanae send calendar invites that you can then accept, and it automatically builds and populates your calendar.
Okay.
Matt?
There's no change from last month's.
The only change is changing January 2nd to January 3rd.
And that Tuesday to a Wednesday, where it says
And that
Tuesday.
Tuesday
Okay.
to a Wednesday, that's correct.
That was a typo on our part.
Okay, so should it be Wednesday, January 3rd?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Is that what it should be?
Yes, sir. And that's because of the New Year's holiday. It was one of the days that the board decided to move their meeting as opposed to being bumped up against the holiday last year when you did your organizational meeting. And that's effectively the only change between what you have in front of you and last month.
I'd still like an email copy.
Absolutely.
If you can send one to, I would assume everybody might need it.
Okay, well, we need a decision either to adopt this or to adopt some portion of this and to review it in early January. And since I won't be here, I need you all to decide.
That's the first time you've done that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, can we not adopt it, and then if we need to change it? It seemed like that happened last year. We had some-
Absolutely. That's
Had something, and then ended up having to change a date here or there, or a time frame here or there.
absolutely. And Don, that's a very good point, because built into this calendar are many tentative dates that are scheduled, but they're not acted upon, or they're not engaged unless the board needs them to be.
Okay.
So you have a lot of flexibility. What this does is it gives the departments, the agencies, staff, a guidepost that we can reference. And it also gets your Outlook calendars populated so you know when the budget meeting's going to be. And you have a guide through the budget process.
You just spoke about an agency that's going to get us some documentation, and because of the holidays, it may take them a little bit longer, and so forth and so on. That's a week there, and you think these agencies are going to be prepared to come right back, or should we move it a little to the following week to give them a week to get themselves settled back in?
Well, you have the Middlesex Water Authority, Hampton Roads Sanitation District, EDA, Bay Aging with Workforce Housing Update, and then Beach Property Update, and Board Strategic Goals on January 5th.
So I'm saying move it to the next week.
But they won't be coming back in front of you on the 19th. They won't come back in front of you until February the 2nd. Yeah, and that's the first Friday in February.
Okay.
So it's an entire month. Yep.
Well, if there's no, if my counterparts don't have a problem with it, I will make the motion to accept the calendar under the circumstance that we may have to rearrange some time frame. Are y'all good with that? I'll make the motion to accept the 24 or 25 draft calendar.
Second.
Budget calendar.
Motion by Mr. Don Harris, second by Mr. Williams. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Bill Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Jesse?
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Yes.
We'll get those calendars out to you all, and we'll ask Janae to send out the calendar invites. The next thing I have, Mr. Chairman, can actually wait until the new board takes I'm struggling for a word, is seated in January. How about that? And that's regarding the board retreat, setting a new time for your everything retreat that we try to do annually. We'll be in touch with each board member individually and Mr. Crittenden and find out some good times for that. And then the last thing I have is just a reminder of board members, especially newly appointed ones and elected ones. VACO offers a wealth of training and engagement opportunities, the first of which is the local government day that's being held on February the 1st, along with the Board Chairs Institute on the 2nd and 3rd. They also hold a newly elected board members forum where they bring you in and give you training, give you insight. Most importantly, you get to meet other folks that have been elected to the Board of Supervisors around the state. It's a great opportunity to meet folks that are doing the same job somewhere else. And it's always surprised me how much we have in common with even a county like Fairfax. You would think we're a small county, we don't have that much in common, but you struggle with the same issues. Just theirs is a much, much, much larger scale than us. So that forum is tentatively being held in May this year. We'll let you know when we have more information on that. And I'd highly encourage any board members that wish to participate to do so. First up is there's the Virginia Association of Counties Certified Board Members Institute. It's a way to get certified as a board member. It's 3 training sessions held throughout the year. That is also worthwhile. So if there's any members that are interested in that, I can get you information and basically get you with the right people to get you registered up. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman, unless there's other questions for me.
Thank you.
Okay, Merry Christmas.
Madam County Attorney.
No, sir, I do not have any additional updates outside of my staff report.
All right, thank you. Is there any unfinished business? Any new business?
For our county attorney, you had mentioned in your report the county continues to receive a high volume of FOIA requests. Could you just elaborate on that just a little bit? What kind of requests are they? And is that normal that you have a high volume of those?
So I would answer that. I could make a joke that we could FOIA that, but that's inside humor, I get that really. So I would say this, Mr. Harris, that during my time here, FOIA has increased each year. And that is, we're not unusual. We're seeing that across the state as they continue, and every year they modify the FOIA laws. And so they expand some things that they allow us to share and other things they restrict. And so we continue to see that. Currently, we're seeing an influx. There are some businesses that are considering making large purchases. And so they utilize law firms, engineering firms, and data centers to gather that data. And so it used to be people just made a phone call and walked in, but we deal with a different volume of that now. And so when I say that, like for example, there was a business that was going to be purchased in Hartfield, and I believe the deal's fallen through. Well, that took, I think Mr. Kretz is here, that took between Mr. Kretz's staff and my staff and administration, it was, I think we got a 15-day, it was like 10 days of just nonstop gathering every piece of data we could find. Tax rolls, zoning questions, communications with administration. And one that we've just recently received is from an out-of-state alleged media company, and I say alleged because we're still investigating, who wants every piece of property and its assessment in Middlesex County. and doesn't want to pay for that work. So we're working with the Commissioner's Office to help gather that, if we can gather that data. Susan Trainer is our FOIA officer. She is excellent at it. She's taken numerous training and is very diligent and detail-oriented, so she's working through that. But no, sir, I would not say that I don't know why there's been such an uptick. I mean, for example, our own engineering firm has sent a FOIA for our own sewer project, and when they realized that, they were using a third-party consultant. We corrected that, but I still have to log it.
Isn't there a fee associated with that?
Yes, sir, we are allowed to charge a fee to recoup. As you know, we're such a small office that when we get a FOIA request, for example, the planning director, Mr. Kretz, has to come and help us search for it. We don't have, so when he's helping me go through old planning records, he's not proving site plans. And so, it becomes very frustrating, and I understand that. But yes, sir, we are allowed to charge a fee, and we do so.
Is it a step fee? Was there something that you were able to accomplish in a day, or something that takes 15 days? Is it stepped, or is it just one flat?
We charge based on the hour of the code requires the lowest paid employee that's capable of doing the job. And so unfortunately, sometimes that's just Mr. Kretz. And so we have to.
Sometimes it's me.
Yes, but, so it's charged hourly, and then we recoup copying fees as well for our paper. So there's a bit of a detailed answer, but yes, sir, it just continues to take quite a bit of Susan's time, and
Yeah, it just caught my eye that I wasn't aware of probably what encompasses FOIA requests. It just seems surprising to me that there were a lot of requests that you listed, so that was why I questioned that.
we've had a couple in the last few months that have seriously taken a substantial amount of everyone's time to gather, because we have such a short time frame to respond. Yes, and you have to go through everything. So Susan receives the request, she then directs it to the appropriate office. I get brought in maybe for clarification. And then, Susan's job is pretty much to make sure the request makes it through the different county offices and we get a response back in that time, and then she keeps a log of those. And I try and include at the end of the year, which I didn't make it this year, but it was going to be in January, a number of how many we received each year.
Obviously, the fee doesn't include the opportunity cost of that time that could be working towards some productive benefit to the county.
No, sir, it doesn't, and I don't include mine as well. I don't think that's, but we do include, again, the lowest paid employee capable of doing the task. But as you guys know, there's only one person sometimes in an office that can, so that is the person.
Okay, next we have matters presented by the board. Mr. Jesse, would you like to start?
Yes, I did attend the VACO conference. It's a very good conference. I went to the federal funding and broadband infrastructure, and the BEAD program, which is it's the, and I'm gonna make sure, deployment. It's the broadband equity assessed deployment, and the government, as you know, has a $1.48 million program, which Middlesex is in pretty good shape because they have already got this going on in the northern end of the county because of the grants, and then all point broadband and Dominion, and also the county put in some money. So we're at the point to within the next 15 to 24 months we will have broadband, fiber in the northern end of the county, all the areas that are not covered, which is going to be very beneficial for a lot of people that don't have it. HughesNet is pitiful. I'm gonna just let you know that they're pitiful. HughesNet is pitiful, but also I would like to say, yeah, we're talking to other counties. We're in pretty good shape because some of them haven't even got the grants yet. So we are lucky that we're in that part of it. And then the western end of the county, with all the mountainous areas, it's very tough up there. But I know for Middlesex, Dominion, you're getting your right of way through the telephone line. So they have to all get certified, all the poles and all this stuff like that. So it's going to be very time consuming, but The other issue is that getting the workforce of people to get it done. And so anyway, I'm gonna keep abreast on the broadband in northern county because John Kuntz was on that board, but now I've been appointed on that board, so I will keep citizens abreast of what's going on with that. Also, I did attend the other one was the emergency, who are you going to call? Well, with fire departments and rescue squad. As you know, I'm a volunteer firefighter, but we're aging up, and we're not getting the younger people involved, and that's where the issue is at. Some counties are working with, schools and getting some of the youth kind of ride along to the games and different things like that. But it's tough because the training that you got to go through and the cost, and also they're having, as I can say, there's a bill that for equipment and things like that, they're cutting funds on that. So there's a bill out there. They're trying to get the funding back for that because fire equipment and rescue squads are doubled almost right now. And it's tough trying to get the funding for it, but there are grants out there for that. And that was about it for my committee report, because the other ones I didn't have anything. But anyway, that's it for my committee reports.
I continue to try to meet with, or be present at the Planning Commission's meetings when I can, and EDA and the EDA Steering Committee that the chairman and I both serve on. And then I also try to, when I can, sometimes it's a conflict, to go to the town of Urbana meetings to see what's interesting and developing there. Other than that, nothing else to report. I would like to have us say it's been a pleasure to work with you, Lud. You've been easy to work with. You've been committed to Middlesex County and their development. Personally, you and I have worked on or had a lot of discussions, and I really appreciate that, and it's been a pleasure to work with you.
Bill, do you have any comments?
Yes, I'd like to thank the board members for their faith and trust that they've instilled in me by letting me be on this board with you. I do appreciate it, and I tell you what, I'm honored to be on a team of this kind of caliber of people that are working towards Middlesex to make it even better than what it currently is. Thank you.
Well, I've been laid up for the last couple so months. I've just been getting out. And I made it to the airport meeting last weekend. You know, I see quite a few was here tonight, but they ain't had much to say. So I find that pretty interesting. But I'm looking forward, to getting back on the roads, and trying to do what I can do for the county or what we can do for the county. And, it's a lot of understanding. We have quite a ways to go, and we got things we have to do. And it's been a pleasure working with you for 4 years, Lud. And I just, I tell you that all the time, because you kind of like make me think a little bit, and anybody that can make you think, that's all right. So hey, man, I appreciate you, and whatever you do, let God speed and God guide you, man. We all will pray for you.
Thank you, Reggie.
Yeah, Lud, I have to say too, it's been a pleasure working with you. You're the number man. I can tell you keep us straight with these numbers and different things like that. But it's been a pleasure working with you. I wish you could have stayed on the board a little bit longer, but you got other things to do. But it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. I'm going to use this opportunity to just share with you a few comments. There's some things that we haven't accomplished while I was here, and I'm disappointed that I wasn't a part of solving these, but I want to remind you that they still need to be solved. And so I got 5 bullets. First and foremost is revising the comprehensive plan. We are at a point where that is critically important. We need to get working on that and have a blue ribbon panel of citizens and whatever consulting resources, whatever's necessary in order to do a great job, because things have changed a lot since the last comprehensive plan. Second, I've spent a lot of effort trying to get a boat launch ramp in Deltaville, and I still haven't succeeded. I'm going to keep trying, but Randy, I'm going to keep bending your ear as well. This is something we need in the boating capital of the Chesapeake Bay as a place to launch a boat. I think that there's room to improve the direct communication of the board with citizens. We've talked about this, and I think as people's communication media has evolved, that we can be more proactive about that. We don't have yet any earmarked incremental funding to finance this high school renovation. There are other counties that have been able to set aside 1% sales tax for their capital improvements of their school district. That is an act of the General Assembly. We should stay on the General Assembly to try and put that forward, and whatever other means might be feasible, because we're looking at a very large and very necessary upgrade. And last, we still haven't gotten around to upgrading our green screen 25-year-old IT system that the county runs on, and I don't want to forget that that's something that does need to be addressed. With all that said, I'm really proud to have worked with you gentlemen and your predecessor for a number of things that really stand out to me. The first thing that happened when Reggie and I stepped into this was we were asked, are you going to mandate that everybody in the county wears a mask every time they go out of their house? Now, that was, in a county where there are no dog leash laws, and you can burn your trash. That's a pretty big ask. I think that the way that this group decided to handle that with a promotion to, we ask that you mask, and there's still a sign over in the Woodard building that says that. I think that was well done with respect to the citizens of this county. Of course, achieving central water is so long in the planning was a major accomplishment, and there's been major progress on sewer, leveraging a fabulous partnership with HRSD that's going to keep Middlesex out of the waste treatment business, yet provide infrastructure for both future economic growth and, just as importantly, protection of the Chesapeake Bay. The Historic Courthouse Committee was formed to guide the evolution of this courthouse to become more of an educational experience. The work has really just begun. You probably noticed that there was a partition that had been added down below. That is to create a space. The initial work that's being done by this Historic Courthouse Committee, arm in arm with the Middlesex County Museum. The initial exhibit will probably be in respect of the 250th event coming up. We have such tremendous historic relevance in Middlesex County that we need to celebrate and recognize that. The continued support of a dredge set aside to enable emergency dredging in Broad Creek right now. It's exactly what it was for, and that's incredibly important to commerce in this county. The formation of a public-private partnership with Mr. Barber to successfully redo our airport, make it safer, make it more attractive. It's going to pay a lot of benefits down the road, and that wound up being at no cost to the citizens. So that was a very creative solution, and delighted that took place. We made significant progress improving the compensation of school and county employees after survey results showed that there was a huge shortfall in competitiveness. It's something where, because everybody says we're behind the median, then everybody tries to move up and the median moves up. And so, there's never an accomplishment there, but there's progress, and I think we made good progress there. The creation of the Heritage Trail, I think, is a good milestone in the evolution of the county, recognizing many important aspects of its history. The work by Kevin Gentry and the Broadband Authority to get this critical infrastructure into place is a major accomplishment. And actually, that was probably one of the few benefits that came out of COVID, was that that actually took place. The evolution of the Economic Development Authority to its, what I consider to be a very high-functioning role. I think that we're going to have tremendous economic benefits from the way that that committee is now functioning. And also the highly constructive relationship between the school board and the Board of Supervisors from the improved communication that we got, in part from the Finance Committee, but in large part just because of the personalities of this board, recognizing the importance of the school board. And I have to say that there were three standouts that I'm going to remember most fondly. First, during the pandemic, the incredible job that Rebecca Morgan and Social Services was able to accomplish. Their workload exploded, and we have a very needy population in this county for those services, and they just did an awesome job, and we should never forget that. Another thing that I always remember is the relentless dedication of John Coons to dredge that wake boat landing. He did it, and he had to do it again, and he had to do it again, and it just kept filling in. And finally, after the last time, there was a storm, and it's not filling in anymore. It's like a miracle happened. But that dedication, I think, is representative of the kind of dedication that these board members have. And it brings me to the most important of all, my experience with the positive and constructive dedication to the citizens exhibited by you, my fellow board members. On behalf of myself and the citizens and the employees of Middlesex County, I just want to thank you all. It's really been an honor. So that's it for me. I'll now open the floor for public comment. Would anybody like to wish to address the board? Hearing none, I'll close public comment, and we will now recess until 7 o'clock when we have the public input on 4 projects that have been circulated in the packet and in the newspaper. So we're in recess.